Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, although he needs no introduction, Dr. Jeff Zwier. He has been leading researcher in the field on academic conversations for years. So many of us in the language acquisition or just in the education field know exactly who Dr. Zwiers is. And so we're super honored that he's going to be sharing with us today. We also are putting a link in the chat so that you can get further learning. We're really excited about his new book, Overhauling Learning for Multilingual Students. So you know he is going to be sharing today quite a bit, and his background is so extensive. He himself has taught in diverse elementary and secondary schools, and his research, like I said, around collaborating and co-teaching with teachers is what works best for all learners. So, as I said, he's written many books. So many of us have cited him in our own research. About our theme for this conference is about for today is about including our multilingual learners in grade level learning in content classrooms and how we do that. So he is the perfect speaker for that. And I am going to stop screen sharing and hand it over to Dr. Jeff Zwiers and tell him thank you so much again for being here.
Well, thank you. I am really looking forward to the next 56 minutes and beyond. Um, I also noticed there wasn't a lot of people from Pacific time zone in the, coming in. I wonder why. Is that because I'm kind of nodding off right now? No, it's a little bit
Charlie,
early here. I'm going to get going in a second.
he'll trickle in just a
Yeah,
minute.
no, my brain will trickle in. Um, okay, so can everyone see the screen? I'm assuming. Good.
Yes, sir.
Um, and I hope you'll be able to hear, let's see, share comparison. Okay, good. Um, so in a nutshell, the information's mostly there for contacting me. I have a mediocre website that I don't update a whole lot, but it's got some stuff on there, some stuff that I'll be presenting this morning. And then the bit.ly for the slides you're probably most interested is just bit.ly/summit Zwiers. I think it's case sensitive. I'm not sure, but just capitalize the S and the Z. All right. Okay. And then I'm just getting my screens all organized here.
And we
And
will also, I was just going to say, we put the link in the chat so it's
okay,
clickable, and we will also add it to the ML Summit website. So
perfect.
thank you for the slides.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. And so even before I get going, it's not just about conversations. Conversations are kind of they're difficult, but they're kind of tangible. But it's also about, the reason I'm starting with this, it's also about student agency, confidence, just being interested in learning and others. And so a lot of the interactional stuff that we'll talk about this morning does that. So it's not just about, getting better at tests through conversations. It's not just about hearing more talk in the classroom. It's also about empowering and building up students' agency, just their excitement, their confidence about talking about any topic, but particularly academic topics, which is one of the things they struggle with the most. So I want to start with that, and I'll probably bring that in here and there during the keynote. So quick agenda, just three items, three big items: idea building and communication, kind of a theoretical foundation. And then I'll kind of launch into we don't have we have too many people to actually do some of the activities, but you'll get a good sense from the student videos what they look like. Okay. And the student interactions are more of, and I should probably call them structured interactions, in terms of not just conversation yet. And then the next, like the third part is scaffolding conversations. So a pair share would be a structured interaction, which isn't really a conversation. Sometimes it turns into one, whether you like it or not. But then the scaffolding, the conversations, that's way more the back and forth. Hey, what's going on in the back of the room with those two for those 3 minutes? So, but we want that stuff in the back of the room, the conversations to happen and to be good. So that's kind of where we're at today. So a lot of oral stuff. But I really want to start with this foundation of idea building and communication. They kind of go together. And so, first of all, let's see if you think this. Language stems from communication, but most students and people think communication is a lot of work. Is this activity worth it? If not, I'll likely do the bare minimum. So you're probably thinking that right now. You're Saturday morning, middle of the summer. Happy summer, by the way. Um, But you're thinking, is it worth it to listen and watch these slides? It's a lot of work to process stuff. And we ought to remember, especially in another language, it's even more work. And so we have to always keep that in mind. We have to make it, we have to scaffold it so it's not too much work, but we also have to remember, let's make it worth it. And so that's kind of what one of my goals in my work anywhere is making the talk, both worth it and supported by what we're doing. So it's not just like, hey, have a 5-minute conversation about this, about genetic engineering. Go. Right. It's not gonna last very long or be of high quality unless we've done a lot of things in between and made it worth it. Okay. So how to make it worth it? Well, this is a slide I've added lately, and because I've been thinking a lot about, what's productive talk if I want to talk about conversations. And the first thing that I have landed on, and it's been well received and it's been successful, is this notion of idea building. So this would be like building up a concept, solving a problem, something a meaty idea, concept, or claim, and then communicating it to others. Now, there's not a lot of kids who are like, "Oh, I'm excited to build an idea." Now, some are, and particularly as kids get older, they get less interested in this. Sometimes you have your first and second graders that are stoked about building ideas, and then suddenly, well, where did that go in fifth grade? Um, so we want to keep that interest going. But what we can use is a project or performance. So not a test. Tests and quizzes, there's a few kids that are motivated by the points. We know that, but you get this feeling, right? We're always feeling it's like that's the stick instead of the carrot. It's always like, oh, you're gonna lose some points here. You're gonna lose some points, so you better do this. So it's not as productive if you're just talking about points, right? Grades, points. And of course, there's a few kids that are highly motivated by points and grades. I'm usually not that worried about them, to tell you the truth, right? It's the kids that are like, I don't care about the points, right? And I want all kids to have these productive conversations. So I just put this in here because I get a lot of questions. How do I get my kids to have productive talk? And some kids are also motivated just to be social, and we can take advantage of that, right? Doesn't mean their conversations are always, academic in nature, but it's still positive. They're working together, they're learning how to, communicate with one another. And then of course the smallest one here, see how the font's smaller, is the points test prep. You still might get some kids to talk, by like saying preparing for a test or that kind of motivation. But for the most part, at the starting on the left, you're going to get more productive talk, more and higher quality talk. Thinking about that. Even though the problem is, if you look on the right side, that's where a lot of the curriculums are focused. So a lot of curriculums do not value, and sometimes you will have a decent like a essential question or a decent project or performance, but often, you know, I've seen a lot of emphasis toward that right-hand side of, hey, this is why you learn and this is how you learn. You get points, you memorize stuff, you take your test, you solve these disconnected problems, and then you move on, right? So I'm really trying to move over to that left side, and it's not easy. I'll just be honest. So there's 3 features of communication. that I want to focus on. One is, like I already said, building up an idea or building up two ideas in an argument. I use a balance scale. I might not get to it at the end of today, so it'll be in the slides, but I use it as a graphic organizer to show kids that, hey, it's not a persuasive essay where you are writing your side. You've already decided your side of things, and then you're just trying to back it up and then, present another side to it just because someone told you to. No, it's an argument is where you build up both sides objectively and honestly, and then you decide which side weighs more. Then you decide. So you build up both sides and then you decide. And I'll get to that later. But first, I want to talk a little bit about idea building and just kind of having that culture of, hey, this is what I'm doing. Why I like to ask kids, why are you doing this activity? Have you ever done that? After, they do an activity, you ask them, why'd you do that? I want them to say, well, we're building up this idea or answering this essential question or solving this major problem or preparing for a very engaging product or performance. I don't want to hear, well, I think it's going to be on the test. That's not, again, it's not as powerful. It's kind of that half motivating, right? Pseudo motivating. And so how many of you have kids that say, I learn the most by pushing myself and others to build up ideas to be as strong and clear as possible? So again, it doesn't have to, they don't have to memorize that, but it's just nice when kids have some continuity. It's not just, a lot of kids are thinking minute to minute or even just day to day. They don't really remember a whole lot from yesterday, especially if it's disconnected from today or tomorrow. And so we're really trying to say, okay, you're building up this idea for these 3 weeks of a unit, but that you might keep building it the rest of your life. This is not just a, guided by the curriculum thing. You're building up a meaty idea that'll help you in life. And here's some ideas. Wind and water change the shape of the land, right? Science idea from, early elementary or middle elementary. Notice that I just use this wall. You could use a semantic map or any kind of diagram that shows the building up of an idea. I like the wall because it's building up. And I sometimes have used different colors for clarify and support, which is another feature of authentic communication that's coming up, but you don't have to. It gets confusing, so you don't have to have the different colors. But notice we made rain and rivers in our garden. So that's a personal, often people call them connections. I try to get people to talk about building blocks now because building blocks are a little more solid and lasting than just connections, but you can call them what you want. There's stuff from school and stuff from home. So personal and school building blocks are kind of the terms I use. And I often try to say, hey, it doesn't have to be 50-50, but just quite a few personal building blocks. Because if we just say, well, your personal building blocks aren't going to be on the test, so, they're not that important. Let's just, one or two, we'll make a connection. No, I'm really under the strong conviction that the more personal building blocks that kids have, as we know, those personal connections to background knowledge, background experience, but the kids see them as super useful in building up an important idea. That's one of the important parts that I want to emphasize. It's not just, hey, you made a connection, great. Now let's study for the test. So, and there's a few more here. Multiplying regular fractions makes them smaller. That's a meaty idea in math. It's not just, hey, how do I solve this problem the quickest way possible so I can get through the test, on Friday? It's, I'm building up some robust concepts in math, concepts and claims in math. And I'm using problems as examples, not just problems that you give me. I'm making up my own problems. And I'm thinking about, something at the store yesterday. I'm using those to build up this idea, right? Any language works, right? Es importante tener amigos que sean diferentes a mí. It came from, I think, because of Winn-Dixie. So they're reading a book, the idea came up, and you're building it up, English, Spanish, whatever. you're building up ideas. That's the important part. It's not your correctness of your language. It's the idea building. True heroes help others. You've seen all these, right? Lincoln's getting really rest, a history one. Linear equations with different slopes intersect on a graph, and that can be a decision point, right? So these go all the way up, K-12, right? And this is actually, I think, a CTE. It's important to understand soil characteristics and properties for site preparation, right? So just these meaty ideas. This one I want to highlight a little bit just because our memories make us human. Notice my memories of my grandma is not in the book. It's not in the book. This kid, whoever's thinking it. So we're gonna value these personal connections. And I'll get to that in the next slide. But before we do that, this was actually a teacher in Omaha who took this building idea, and she had some of these large building blocks, and she had kids write the idea. I think the kids put it on the bottom, but I like it on the top, but it's whatever, it worked. And they're proud of their idea. They built it up. They read 2 different articles on, I think it was something like teenage justice or something like that. The justice system for younger kids. And they put their building blocks to build that up. So I thought it was kind of a cool way to do it. So that's why I show the picture. But what I want for you, and I haven't been monitoring the chat very well, is think of an idea you want your kids to build. I know you're not in class. I know it's summer. Maybe it's your own kids at home. You probably want them to build up an idea about, thinking during the summer or doing chores or whatever. It doesn't matter. But think about a meaty idea or an essential question, but don't put the question in. I want the first line of the answer. So I want the thesis statement. So the idea is, if you look up here, these are all pretty much thesis statements, or in some, for younger kids, topic sentences. So I want complete sentences. They don't have to be very, long and complex. Like, it's important to be honest. Wouldn't you like a kid to say that? My test for a good idea is, if a kid says it to you, are you happy? Are you stoked? And then, is it buildable? So if a kid says it's important to be honest, I say, oh, well, I agree, but tell me why you think that. Tell me more. I want to hear examples of it, and I want to hear what you think it means to be honest. Right? Those kinds of things are what we're looking for, because what I'm setting up here, I'm setting up these buildable topics for conversations. That's why this is why we're doing all this work on ideas, because that's going to be what kids talk about. And you're going to get more mileage out of ideas than some of the other things that are going on in curriculums. Okay, so cell phones disrupt the classroom environment. Okay, great. So if a kid says that, I'm going to say, well, tell me how, tell me why. And that could be an argument too. There could be, let's build up both sides of that, right? Some of these are arguments. That's fine. Animals adapt to survive. Great. I think I have a video on that in here. People use language publicly for a variety of purposes. Perfect. So notice, these are ideas we want them to stick in their head beyond the 3-week unit. I want, look at these ideas. These are ideas that should be in their brains for life and keep building. Working with peers can help us learn better. I mean, all of this stuff is fantastic, right? There's some science ones. Is this something you could draw? Yeah, and so you could draw this, I think Nicholas asked, could you draw it out over the semester? Yeah, so you could have like a semester-long idea that you're building up. And sometimes you have these essential concepts in history and science that, like, scientific method, if that's still called the scientific method, is something that can go, the whole year. You can relate back to it and say, notice, hey, we're going to control variables in this particular experiment. So let's, here's an example of it. Here's an example of it. You have examples all year, and maybe even for multiple years of something that could build up that idea of what science is, you know? Yeah. So, and then, for example, Christine asks, how are we a community? And then what would be the first answer to that, right? A community is, a group of people with similar interests and, I don't know, um, behaviors who work together for good. I just made that up, right? But wouldn't it be nice to have that solid thesis statement and then talk about it? You can't just memorize your thesis statement and say, I'm good. You want to keep building it. It's buildable, and it's buildable across people. Like, you have a conversation, I would have a conversation with Katie about community, and then it would be different with Lisa, and it would be different with Melanie. And eventually I'm having all these conversations about this big idea of community. And that's really what helps me both learn concepts and language because of those interactions. I'm interested in it. Like, it's not just something I'm going to memorize for the test. It's not just for an essay. It is something that I want to stick in my head, and I want to keep on building it up. Okay, awesome. I will keep moving. You can feel free to put, we're going to keep, I think we're going to hold on to this chat, right, Carol?
Yes.
So you can keep, we'll give you access to the chat if you want to hold on to some of these ideas, but keep on putting them in there if you want. I want to share a quick, I want to share a quick video about, and some of you might have seen this, but it's really cute, and it's really powerful when we see the personal building blocks. I have a problem with, I'll just admit it, a hyper focus on text-based questions. They're testable, yeah, because it's in the text. But this notion of idea building, brings in the personal, and it values them. So just watch this. These kids have been talking about the power of music. They do refer to the text, I think, right early on, but then just think about what the boy says near the end, and let me know if you can't hear it.
I think that
You good?
on the last page where it says, but music fills your heart, I think that it's trying to tell, that little sentence right there, I think it's trying to tell us that music, when you like sing it or you play it, it could make you happy. Like if you're sad, it can make you happier. So it's like trying to say it fills your heart with happiness.
It kind of reminds me because of my own life. Because one time I was sad because my great grandmother died, and I was like walking around Manhattan, and I saw this guy. He was with like a few other guys, and they were like playing drums, and they were singing, and I stayed there for like 5 minutes, and it made me feel a little bit happier because my great grandmother, she used to like music, and I gave them like at least $1.
So, I mean, kind of a short snippet, but he made a connection, but let's call it a building block, right? That's a building block, not just for him, but it's for the others in the group. So what I often notice, and you might have noticed this too, is some kids will just be listening, like, and I don't know how the focus was, from the teacher in this particular group, but the kids might just be listening. Oh, that's interesting. But I want them to be more than that. And I want them to say, oh, you know what? I can use that. I can use that, kids. And I even personally, I now have a stronger sense of music, the power of music, because of this kid's video. I haven't even talked to him in person. But notice how, being open to that. And if those other kids are thinking, oh yeah, they could use, whatever his name is, example in their idea building for the power of music. And that also amplifies the talk. If those other kids are just saying, oh, that's cool, okay, that's interesting, whatever, let's move on. That's very different from, oh, wait, tell us a little more about that. Or even just not, if they're listening well, he's going to keep talking and feel valued. So there's that value that comes from him talking and sharing he's an expert in whatever that was he's sharing, right? And so he's going to keep sharing it. And all, like Carol says, all voices have value, but it's not a token value, it's a real value. And that's what I want, that's what we want these conversations to be. We don't just want fake listening. Oh yeah, you got to use your 4 listening behaviors or whatever that is I've seen, right? It's not just that. You need to use it in your brain. And the more you think you're going to use it in your brain, then more you're going to really listen. And they know that. Everyone knows when you're kind of fake listening. And we don't want that, right?
I think that
Okay. So now the other 2 features, and these count as one feature, but it's clarify and support are these 2 big skills that I don't see enough of. And so it's almost like we got to be a little more obsessed than we think we should be with getting kids to clarify and support, and not just with each other. That's kind of what we'll talk about today, but even as they're reading. When they're reading, are they clarifying and they're asking for support from the author, kind of interacting with text in that way? Um, are they doing it when they're listening? Are they doing it when they're, any communication? You saw that acronym. You probably people always ask RWLS. I forgot. It's reading, writing, listening, speaking, and then conversing, representing, and interpreting. So any type of communication, whether it's dance, drama, music, any type of communication, we can ask for clarification and support here. And so often, in most activities, I will have a step that says, ask your partner. And sometimes I'm just forcing it on them. Like in a pair share, every pair share, I go into classrooms quite a bit and I'll do model lessons and I'll do lots of pair shares. I say in every pair share, when you're listening, I want you to ask at least one clarify or support question. Because if you don't say that, often you're going to be missing out, right? If I'll often like a pair share is like, how many have seen a pair share where a kid shares 1 or 2 sentences and the other kid just nods his head? Okay. Trying to get done as soon as possible, which is the opposite of what we're going for. Really, and so that's why I say ask a clarify support question, right? And these, I think I have a couple of sentence frames down here. What do you mean by and how? And can you give an example of why? Now, if kids start to, I don't know, I say memorize, but fall back on or like use these habitually, like their go-tos, you can have some pretty good interactions and conversations. If they stop, and the biggest problem with conversations is they stop after 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 lines. If they know that they can go to a what do you mean by, or can you give an example of, or a how and a why, that can keep the conversations going. I know this sounds like a simple fix, and it's not that simple, but it is one way to get, to scaffold conversations, is to teach these, and that we're clarifying and supporting most of the time. The final thing that's very important, and many of you language development folks are familiar with the term information gap, but it's why language was invented. It's because drawing in the sand and grunting wasn't enough at some point. And so we started to invent words, put the words into sentences, put the sounds into words, words into sentences, etc. But there was a need to do it. It wasn't just for fun or points or for correctness. It was someone else needed some information and they passed it on. So that's kind of where that's one of my goals when I'm working with teaching activities, teachers and kids, is there an information gap there? Because if there's not, even right now, if some of you already know this and you don't think it's that interesting or important, you're checking out. You're thinking about something else. You're doing something else. That's what everybody does, because it's a lot of work. Remember back to that first slide, it's a lot of work. So if I don't think it's useful, I'm not going to listen hard, because listening is hard and I'm talking kind of fast. And so the more we can fill information gaps, like a jigsaw is a good example of this. Jigsaws have a built-in information gap. You read something, I'm looking at 4 people here, right? So Carol reads something, I read something different, Adrian reads something different, and Rachel reads a 4th thing, let's say. And then we get together and we share what we read. That's information gap, which is great. But what's sometimes missing from that jigsaw? The other 2 features. So look, often I will see a jigsaw that was just to cover questions or something like that, to answer questions or to fill in a chart. The kid thinks, I've just got to fill in this chart, man. Okay. And then we're done, right? And I get either verbal points or real points, whatever. But no, it should be to build up an idea. I should be listening to Carol, Rachel, and Adrian's stuff to help me build up an idea about whatever this text is about. And I should be sharing with you because I'm helping you build up an idea. Also, how often do you hear good clarifying support questions during a jigsaw? Maybe you do, but often I just hear a kid read his notes to the group and the other group copies them down. And that's it. They're trying to finish as quickly as possible, and then we're done, right? So it's really emphasizing that idea building and then also nudging that clarifying support into every activity. Okay, let's watch. There's some clarifying support questions in this. They use the text a little bit. It's a nice little first grade video. They're looking at a picture, and that's the text of a pufferfish about to be kind of, I don't think it gets eaten by the big fish, but a big fish is going after the pufferfish. And just listen to the conversation. Again, we got to get them started in this even earlier than this, right? But this is a nice way to start when you watch these kids. And just notice some of the pops. Notice those things. I put the little graphic organizer on the left. Look for those things, okay?
Maybe I would take it away. If the blood was take out, then it would die. Another different idea. Maybe the pufferfish have those waves that maybe they can pick them like that. Maybe that's like scratching too. Yeah, scratching I think we can put them together. He can swim away. The pufferfish is really slow. How can it swim away fast? Maybe by those fins. What? Maybe by those fins, we can drag them really quickly. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I think maybe we got one idea together. Is like I feel like a puffer get big, like a fish, like we have to eat them, and about the little rabbit wings, like slowly, he will eat them, but he can scratch himself. And it's got himself inside his body, and he would die, right? Yeah. Ooh, that's a good idea. We make one idea. Yeah, Gabe.
What did you guys come up with together?
My idea.
And do I just want your idea?
Our idea is that if it cuts its claws, if the fish gets to its claws and it pokes him, then he dies.
Is that kind of what you guys came up all together? Amy, it looks like you're right. Can you write that down? Our idea is.
So I'm sure you noticed quite a few of the features there. They were building up an idea. They even said it. They filled information gaps because they each kind of had a different impression, and they actually, started off a little bit on the wrong-ish path, but then got onto, the idea of the adaptation, which is really, the bigger idea that they're building up is, animals have adaptations that help them survive. Also, there was a little piece, I've seen this many times, where the kid on the right says, huh. Now, what is that? It's a fantastic clarify prompt, right? I mean, it's not quote unquote academic, but who cares? It's a great way to show that you're interested in what the other kid said. Like it's quick, but it's like, huh? That means, wait, I want to hear what you're saying. I didn't quite get it. Please say it again. And it's fantastic to, because again, kids kind of get in this mode where I just talk and they nod their head and then we move on. But really it's kind of stopped the conversation and got them to kind of clarify. And anyway, I just want to emphasize that getting them started early also, does anyone ever seen that I'm not sure how researchy it is, but it says 10,000 hours it takes to become an expert at something? Well, we want kids to become experts in talking to others, right? Again, not just about academic topics, but just having those interactions, those positive, and we've seen a lot of kids and adults that aren't very good at that interpersonal communication. There's a lot of nonverbals going on. There's a lot of variation across people. When I talk to you, we have to make some adaptations, and talk differently and read other people's verbal and nonverbal, cues. And if we don't give kids enough practice, they get out, they go 12 years. And, but if we do, they have a chance to get this really, to be really good interpersonally, which is one of the top 3 things that, not that it's all about employment, but it's one of the top 3 things. Actually, it's not just employment. That's one of their top 3 listed things. But if you were to ask significant others, I would say it's probably one of their top 3 things too, right? It's one of our top 3 things, all of us, is to have someone who, is good at communicating, especially interpersonally, one-on-one. So anyway, I don't want to, go too far into that, but kids spend about 10,000 hours in school. And I'm not saying they should be talking all 10,000 hours, but what I'm saying is they should be talking more than they often are. We've all been in classrooms where, there's very little talk and maybe there's a pair share, if we're lucky. But again, one of the things is, getting the talk to be more quantity, but also quality. Good. And I just saw Carol putting that in there. Okay, structure interact. Now I'm just going to kind of go through these pretty quick because some of you have seen this activity. It's called Stronger and Clear. It's basically 2 to 3 to 4 pair shares in a row. But each time, and this is the kicker, it's not just to give one, get one. The kicker is that it should become stronger and clearer each time. That means I'm not just, sharing with like my 3 partners the same thing every time, or it gets worse. Every time if I start with Jennifer and she's my first partner, then I use stuff from her. Either she asked me a clarify question that I realized, oh no, I got to clarify that for my next partner. Or she gives me an example, like, I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal it. I've had teachers call this the steal it activity, but it gets better. So it gets stronger and clearer each time. And so, and you notice what it says, stronger tends to be a little more on the content side, clearer tends to be a little more on the language side, but again, there's overlap between the two. And then I always ask for clarification and support. You have to ask at least one clarify and or one, support question while you're the listener. And often if they're using notes and stuff, I try to get them at the very end, the third, where they're just talking face to face and not looking at notes very much. Trying to, one of our goals is to get kids to talk from their brains and not from notes or text all the time, right? Okay, so here's a 3rd grade example on animal adaptations. And again, look for those things on the left. She's going to talk 3 times. I might try to interject because I don't know if I have it on the actual video, but you'll kind of notice. And then just look for what happens.
I feel like the birds beak of them. That's because like it has sharp beaks, like to kill worms and eat bugs, and a really long beak to dig into trees like a woodpecker, and then like it could catch many bugs to eat. And yeah. What does it really mean by? Well, I meant by like the beak, like it's really, really sharp to kill bugs, and then also long beaks like woodpeckers, they use their beak to like catch worms that like dig a hole into trees. how did you really know? Well, I actually like, I meant, are there any type of any more bodies that help them? Yeah, the claws also help them because the claws also help kill because they have sharp nails on their feet, right? And then if they an owl, if they want to kill mice, the claws are so sharp that it could kill the mice and they have a nice dinner. Sharp claws, and I figured out that
Second partner.
their beaks, it's also really sharp, so it could kill animals with their beaks or claws. So birds' environments are really good, and the eyes help the owls. That's because they could see in the dark, and the eyes absorb light. So it's they midnight we can't see in the dark, but owls could see really well to hunt and catch food. So I think birds adaptations are good for
third
them.
partnership.
That's because say an owl, the beak is actually really sharp, so it could kill animals, or the claws are actually really sharp also, so it could hunt for mice, and the eyes help it because it absorbs light, so in the midnight humans can't see in the dark, so they walk into trees or rocks. But owls, the eyes help them because they can see in the dark. Why would an owl need its talent? Owls needs talent because if it didn't have talent, it would only have to use its beak, and then I think it usually uses talent to actually kill animals and don't really use a beak.
Okay. I don't know how to pause it on that. But in a nutshell, I don't know if you noticed, well, we could spend a little time on it, but we don't have time. She actually said some different things in the first and the second, and then she combined them in the third, which was really cool, right? She actually got ideas from the eye ideas, I think she got from her first partner. She might have shared in the second partnership. And then in the third partnership, she shared both the talon stuff, and she actually hadn't used the word talons until that kid, the boy, asked the question, right? So a lot of, quite a lot of messy stuff. I always use the word messy in all of my presentations. A lot of really good messy stuff, because that's how language is really learned. It's through, messy but meaningful interactions. And you don't know if she's going to remember talons the next day or not, but if she keeps having conversations with different kids, that's going to come up, right? And so reading text and talking about it is powerful. I do want to honor the older student people in here. So if you work with, middle and upper, I just want to share this 9th grade version, if that's okay. It's a really good video. Some of you might have seen it. But they're preparing, it's more of a language arts class, but they're preparing to read Animal Farm. So they're talking about communism versus capitalism. So it's kind of just a prep building background. And they've done a little bit of text work, but it's not a full-on unit on communism, capitalism. Just look at the guy on the right. He's the mic'd guy, and this is more of a lineup activity, right? Which you've seen and used. Look for 3 changes. Does it become stronger? Does it become clearer? And look for one other important change. Okay.
Which one you continue on?
Capitalism. Because it's help you, it's give you freedom, and you can do anything. You can do your own business.
You don't have to write during his, just listen, yeah. just listen and just keep asking him. Get him to say more. You know, are there any other reasons, or can you give an example?
So is that another reason?
You can. They give you the power, freedom, and I mean, you can do anything for your choice. They can. The government they didn't interfere your work. They just helping you. What do you want?
My opinion is capital. Oh, not mine. Sorry. So give me an example.
You can do. You can buy your own house and sell. You sell that house, and you do your own business. You can sell that workshop. You can.
Thank you.
Okay, so now the other partner has to speak now, right? You were speaking up to this point. You could write down a couple of things that they said that you find important and you want to share. Okay.
Which is better, communism or
Capitalism.
So tell me why.
Capitalism is good because they give you freedom. And you can do your own job. They never stop you. They give you rights. You have rights to do anything.
What's your name?
Pranta.
Can I spell that?
P-R-A. N-T-A.
Alright, so keep alright. So explain more, elaborate why you think
It's good because example, when you're starting a business, they never stop you. You can do your own business. You do anything for your business. They never stop you.
Give an example.
Like you try to open a chocolate shop, and you buy lots of, and you collecting for all world to collect lots of chocolate for your shop, for famous. You can do that. They didn't stop you.
What you think about the government? Do you think the government should control your business, your land, or do you
No,
think
they didn't control. They didn't control your land. They just give you freedom.
When you said that when owning your own shop, you're keeping it, and nobody like you have more rights. I like that. It made my statement more stronger about capitalism and what it does.
Okay, I just want to highlight that it wasn't his turn there. There's a little interlude between changing partners where I always say, okay, now tell your partner what you liked or what's a strong thing. What are you going to use from what he just said or she just said? Okay, so I just want to make sure, and it wasn't scripted, but he really said a nice thing. He said, I really liked it made my idea stronger. I mean, imagine that type of thing happening daily, weekly, on a basis for years, between kids, and it can be really powerful, right? Particularly if he's not feeling like, the other people are listening, then he knows they're listening, right? Okay, I'll just
explain what did I say that made your statement stronger?
Because you have when you do your own job, I mean your own shop, that money goes to only you, not other people.
Next partner. For this partnership, we want you to try not to use your notes. Try to just remember what your points were and the ideas that you took from the other partner. So put your notes down and try to do it from memory. No, you don't have to write. Don't have to write for this one. You don't have to write. You're just speaking now. From everything you've heard and everything you said, just speak. All right. 90 seconds.
Which is better?
Capitalism. Capitalism good because you have freedom. You can use it. You have your own rights. You can do anything what you want. Nobody stop you to do that, do this. You can do anything. Like you try to do a shop, like any big shop, you can do this. The government never stop you. So one example, you have to try a sweet shop, like a big sweet shop, toy shop. You can make it and you can sell it too. And that money you can save, you can take it for only you. Nobody can, other people. And government, they didn't stop you to save that money. You can save that money for your family and your future too. And you can buy your own house too, and you sell too. You can do it. You can buy and sell too, but they give you the just freedom, and they give you more power to do your work. They respect your rights and things. What you do. One example is capitalism.
Saved by the Bell. So did you, what did you know? Did it get stronger? See some head nods. Thanks for the people showing their faces. I love it. It got stronger. He used more stuff. In fact, the chocolate shop idea came from the first girl. He shared it in the second pair. He didn't share it in the first pair. So he got an example from her that he shared in turn 2 and 3. Clearer? What do you think? It's harder to gauge clearer, you know, but I think he used kind of more complete sentences. His examples made it clear. What was the third one? Someone mentioned it already on there. But, and I often jokingly say, you know, someone will say, well, confidence, right? And I often say, oh, is that important? But, you know, then people are looking at me like, and I say, well, it could be the most important, right? So it's not just the content, not just the language, but building that confidence to talk about academic topics with others and feel valued by those others, right, is powerful, really powerful. So again, this, you know, there was something in the chat about the name of this activity. Yeah, it's like communication lines. It's like, there's a lot of different names for it. But really zoom in on, you know, I really emphasize it should be stronger, it should be clearer, and it should build, you know, kids' confidence in talking and listening about these topics. Okay. Let's see. You can do a pre and post write with this, any activity actually, and you'll see later on in the slides, we won't get to it, but it's called write, converse, write. But you can have any interaction in between the writing, but have them answer the prompt twice. In this case, I'm not going to read it, but notice the prompt got a lot longer and better. This kid probably was not very interested, especially in the first prompt. Like, obviously he did not have a lot to share. But then after talking with a couple partners, he's, I'll share some more stuff. And you can even have them underline stuff they got from partners, which also shows them they get stuff from partners, right? So you know, valuing that talk again through writing. And then also, nice thing about it, you can take home these pre and post writing and see the difference from all the kids in the class. Whereas if they're just talking, it's hard to get around to every kid. So this activity, the videos are on my website. I don't think I'm gonna have time to show the videos. They're pretty cute though. This one, they're practicing the activity and they're talking about ice cream. Okay. And this one, you saw this girl already on the right. They're talking about communism. So it goes from ice cream to communism in one slide. But those videos, I'm pretty sure, and I'll make sure they're accessible so you can check them out. And then normally I would have you guys do the activity, but finally, for scaffolding conversations, I just want to kind of cover the two types of conversation here, at least in my world. One is building up one idea. So that's when, like, it's important to be friends with people who are different from us. Fine. That's a good idea. Let's build it up. It's not an argument. The other one is an argument. So again, you might have other types of conversations, but these are the two biggies that you're going to find in school. And the graphic organizer, again, I won't have time. It's more laid out in the slides. But the graphic organizer is really a balance scale like this. And you can have, I've seen people with physical, they've used science scales, really real scales. I have a 3D graphic organizer that's made out of paper or cardstock, but you can also use the 2D version here. Notice that there's not a lot of clarify in there. We really are emphasizing, okay, when you start arguing, you know, we will clarify and support as we build up each side, but it's really, in the end, I'm not just going to weigh the clarification. Your ability to clarify it might, you know, you might have a great ability to clarify. I'm thinking about lawyers here, but your evidence isn't that strong. So we really are emphasizing to kids, hey, we clarify and support, but in the end, when we're making our decision, we are looking at the evidence in the end. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and this is an activity, you can just use the graphic organizer to build up one idea. We're not going to do this, but you read a poem and build up an idea about it. Okay, you can look at this later, what the activity is. An important part here is kids fill in blocks silently before talking, because then they have something to share with their partners. The final thing I want to do is, so I'm skipping over all the balance scale stuff that you can look at. It's very laid out nice. I just want to emphasize this last, it's called 1222.2, and we've seen a lot of it already. But the first is every activity should build up one idea or two sides of one argument. Okay. 2, students push themselves and others to use 2 skills, clarify and support, in every activity. So those 2 skills are biggie. 2 or more sentences per turn. I did not emphasize that. Usually in the pro-con, I bring that up, but I say I want 2 sentences or more per turn. And they don't always, you know, especially as kids are younger, they don't know what a sentence is necessarily. But I try to get to the point. I want two things that you say, whether they're complete or not. I don't care. I don't want just one. Okay. And then 2 or more successive partners. We just saw that with the stronger and clearer or the conversation lines, right? It's as hard to do, but it's not impossible. It's like, okay, talk to your front partner, talk to your side partner now, and have it stronger. Have the second time you talk be stronger and clear. It's not like you have to get up and stand up all the time, but just that second partner often gives kids, especially multilingual learners, a chance to kind of practice, get some stuff from their first partner. You know, it's not as great, and then they work on it with the second partner. Okay, and the last thing I'll focus on is the point 2, which is and I get pushback from this all the time. Each student talks for 2 minutes for every 10 minutes of class. So again, that sounds like a lot for some people and little to other people. But it's not, it's a nice point of argument. Like people can argue, okay, well, and I will say 2 minutes means if it's a pair share, that means it's 4 minutes of pair share. So again, do what you want with it. It's just really trying to push for more talk than is what is often happening in a lot of curriculums. So I hope that was helpful. I went 1 minute over. I apologize. And it was kind of quick and messy, but I'm hoping that there was some little nuggets or building blocks that you can use in your own practice.